we're going to make this happen. All right. We're going to be on Clubhouse now. Hopefully we'll have some people who join us. Welcome, welcome. And we have a very interesting topic that I want to discuss and to see how it applies with Jewish values and this week's Torah portion, actually, in particular. I want to discuss a couple of things that have happened with me in just a couple of days. So just everything ties in. And, you know, I've mentioned many times, there's only one God, one Torah. And we can see the oneness of God in our lives. We're very lucky. And as the Alter Rebbe teaches us, that we have to live with the times, because the times, the weekly Torah portion, gives us insight into the things that we're going through in our own lives. And if we can appreciate that, we're immensely lucky. So one of the things that's happening, not with me personally, but you know, with the things that people I'm engaged with, that I deal with, and it's got to do with cancel culture. You know, this is a predominant thing now that's happening everywhere. We read about it in the news. We perhaps even know maybe some people who have been the butt of it. And yeah, how do we understand it? How do we deal with it? What is the Jewish perspective on it? So these are some of the things that I'd like to discuss. So before any questions or comments or anything, I'm just gonna, you know, give my little rant, you will, and then we will, by all means, have, you know, to share, as we always share, together. But again, what I want to first do is, you know, some people that I know, like cancel culture is actually really on a personal level. You know, think about it for a moment. What is the most, you know, take it on a one-to-one level. Forget about the culture, but take it down to the human level. What is cancel culture? If there's someone that you don't like, so what is the best way to deal with them? The best way to deal with them, or I don't know, I shouldn't say that. And it's not the best way, God forbid. It's not the best way. How many people deal with it is they cancel that person. In other words, they don't exist. They speak to them, they don't respond. They are as if, you know, they, you know, if someone did something to you and you don't like it, and you scream at them, or you whatever, what is that scream saying? I recognize you, that you exist. I may not like what you did, and I may be very upset and angry and this and that, fine. But I'm recognizing you exist, so much so that I'm, you know, you exist so much because you hurt me and pain me. How is, when another person doesn't exist, so you don't respond. They speak to you, you just look the other way. They're trying to engage you in any way, you're not interested, as if they don't exist. So that's on a very, you know, one-to-one level, and unfortunately, you know, people that have come up to me, just in the last few days, of, you know, people having those kind of challenges, even within family units, you know, where they kind of, you know, you're not going to amount to anything type of attitude, and you know, you're really, you know, you're really so whatever. You know, we can point a finger and give you a label, and because we've given you that label, you know, nothing's going to come of you. And I've been dealing with that with a few people just of late, so it's on my mind. That's part of the culture, the cancel culture, right? And again, it really comes down on a one-to-one basis, and then from there it can become a something of society, the nature of a culture in society, or a nature of some groups of society, and so on. But it really comes down to that. Even even on a professional level, uh, without getting into any details, because it's not important at all, the details. But someone who we tried to help out. And that person, with their problems and so on, writes back a report to their superiors for whatever, that things that, and with the intent to nix and to cancel. Again, I don't want to go into it. It's not important at all. So the truth is, on a cultural level, and so we've explained it like on human terms, but on a cultural level, this has existed throughout history, and just recently it existed where? Communist Russia, right? Communist Russia were about canceling any other kind of culture that was not apropos. It did not fit in with the communist belief system. So Judaism didn't, other religions didn't, especially Judaism, right? Or anything else. So what were they all about? In the communist Stalinist way, cancel, which, that was, brute murder. And you had that with Nazi Germany too. Same thing, no different, right? Different shapes, different colors, and so on. What's unique today, it's happening in democracy. That maybe hasn't really happened on a mass level. That perhaps is not something that has happened in any significant way. I'm sure there's little pockets here and there, but not that it's gaining such momentum and that it has such a power that, similar to the communists. Similar. I mean, I don't think it's as powerful as yet, because they were the only opinion, right? The communists in Stalinist Russia and the Nazis in Hitler's Germany. Okay, so it's not that, but it's still now much more powerful and out there than ever before. I just want to say it's an evil. It's an evil. And why is it an evil? I mean, what makes it an evil? So, and by the way, I would suggest that most people in a democracy would not say that they have anything to do with it. It's just, by the by, it happens, but it's not really, that's not true. That's the full intent, is to cancel another who's in disagreement with you, that there isn't an open forum, there isn't a discussion on any issues, and so on and so forth. And therefore, just like I can cancel a person that they are not relevant in my life, so I will then try to, or people try to, or groups try to. And I want to be very clear, this is, it's a very vocal minority that is having an influence on a I don't know if it's a majority, but a huge sway of people, as a huge opinion of people, as a result, out of fear, out of being bullied, and so on, and fear for the bottom line if it's a corporation, and fear of keeping your job if you don't, talk the talk, and so on. Even if today, it's even gotten to such a degree that even if you don't openly and vocally hold with with the side that is of that culture, and you are just sort of on the side, that itself is grounds for that you're not party to this this opinion or this point of view, and open to be canceled ultimately. This is what we are dealing with. So that's my, the problem, but we need the solution, of course. We need what's the Jewish perspective on this, and how do we don't allow ourselves to be swept away. So as I mentioned, since this is like literally in the last couple of days, things that have come up to me with people and things that they're dealing with. So it's just, on my mind, and just, learning the Parsha and reading different things came to me. And so I just want to share it. Maybe it'll probably be greater clarity as we share together. Before I go into, from a Jewish perspective and to see things, does anybody have something that they would like to share or to bring up at this point?
Rabbi, I actually have a question. The situation you are referring to, is it happening to Canada, in Canada? And the reason I'm asking is because we were of the opinion, at least in our neck of the woods, that that didn't spill too much into Canada yet, and there is a concern that it wouldn't spill into Canada, but that's why I want to know.
Yeah, so I don't think it's in Canada the way it is down south, south of the 49th parallel.
My family's opinion.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that it's definitely not at all in that manner. I would agree with that totally. But the notion is there, and it's going to only build because it's building in the most powerful nation of the world, and so it's going to build beyond there. And it's something that I think we need to take note of. And
it's definitely a concern.
Yeah, and to take note of, I bring it back to on the personal level of the one-to-one. Forget about in a culture. It can only become a culture if there is that human dimension of it in the human condition, that we are prone to it. And therefore we need to know how to deal with it on that personal level, so then it will not become a cultural, a society issue. Chaim, did you?
Rabbi, I'll wait for you to go into more of the Jewish perspective before I elaborate, but I want to say that I don't think that I am asking with you that it doesn't happen as much in a democracy as it would in, say, communist in the Soviet Union, and because I think it definitely happens, as you said, much more here in the U.S. than where you guys are in Canada, because you strangely are abnormally happy people where nothing bad ever happens. But
that's a good one.
It definitely happens here, and I'll elaborate more after you go into the Jewish perspective, because I think it's become huge in the last year here in the U.S.
Oh, Chaim, I agree with you totally. There's no disagreement on that, and I've spoken about it many times in various classes. So this is not the first time discussing it, but just literally, the fact that I had in the last couple of days different things that came up. So it's just more on my mind, shall we say? But we're on the same page. We're on the same page, and I agree with you. It is a huge concern, and the problem, and the truth is, if it bleeds, it leads. And, we could bleed more of this and speak more of the ills of it and so on and so forth. But then we're just falling into the trap, and we're not learning and growing. And we're just, we're aware and how terrible it is and so on. So the truth is, I didn't give you any details of the things, I just sort of use that as a springboard. But it's out there, we're aware. I think the most important thing is the light that we have from Torah teachings that will illuminate us in a personal way in a collective way, and hopefully it will change the world for good. So, ultimately that's where we want to go, is to shed some light on this dark issue. But yes, I agree with you, Chaim. Okay, so let's look at this week's Torah portion and get some insight from there. So it's actually pretty amazing. I mean, I shouldn't say it's amazing because it's the Torah, so but how you just like pick up a page and you see how one verse to the next, how it brings such insight. So the first thing is loy that I want to share in the second parsha of Kedoshim, to begin with, is lo telech rochel be'amecha. You shall not go about as a gossiper among your people. Gossiper means not telling a lie. Telling a lie is telling a lie. Gossip means I've got information about you, and I'm sharing it with another person. True information, and it might not even be negative things about you or anybody, but it's just the concept of I have information about you and I'm sharing it with others. Why am I sharing it? Either to make me look good, or maybe to endear myself to you because I'm the bearer of this information to you, and that will endear you. I will be endeared by you because this information was important to you. So you're doing it for an ulterior motive. That itself is a prohibition in the Torah. So it could even be positive stuff. It doesn't have to be negative things. No, hey, did you know that so-and-so just bought a house and they paid so much money for it, and so on and so forth? That's a peddler. You're peddling information. Again, it doesn't have to be negative information, but obviously from positive will come negative. That's one thing. But even the positive, the fact that we are attuned to other people's lives, the information about their lives, and we're peddling that information, that itself is not a healthy thing. That itself is not where we should be. That's a beginning of a great downfall. Then in the very same verse, and I got to tell you, I really want to do more research on this. I didn't, because this only dawned upon me right before, beforehand, because I was thinking about it and I just putting things together. I even want to do more research because I think there's a wealth of over here. So in the end of that verse says that you shall not stand over the blood of your friend. I am Hashem. I'm God. Which means that, well, on the simple level means if someone is drowning, right, and you could save them, you got to save them. You can't stand idly because your friend is drowning. Another person is drowning. If you can be there of an assistance to another. So to take this on a different level, and what the connection between the two things over here are, the first part and the second part, a connection at least, is that when a person is their blood has been spilled, right? Or don't stand over the blood of your friend. So it doesn't just mean they're a physical danger, but it also means a spiritual danger. If a person is in a spiritual danger, you have the capability, because as the Baal Shem Tov says, if you are in view of this, if you are seeing the danger that this person is going through and spiritually, and you are there, the fact that you, as the Baal Shem Tov says, everything you see and hear is a message from God and in divine service. So there's a message there for you on that you got to help. Got to help this person in whatever way you can. Got to do it in a gentle and a beautiful way, right? In a loving way, but you have to help this individual. So the first thing is information. We live in an information age, and what kind of information age do we live in? Well, I once had the CEO of the Montreal Gazette the local newspaper over here. I had the publisher, actually, the publisher. I had a conversation. This goes back about 15 years ago with him, maybe even more. And I was like, it's just very upsetting with news, what they do, and everything is negative, and whatever it is in order. Ultimately, it's just to to get more viewers so they can have a better bottom line because of advertisers, and that I said, you have a duty. You have a duty to make sure that you are influencing society in a way that will bring them and uplift them and change the world for good. And the way things are presented to people, and facts are not facts, because facts are always based on the perceiver of the facts, need to be guided by goodness and kindness. Goodness and kindness. And if you're going to be a peddler of information, be of goodness and kindness. So we had a discussion, and in the end, it was fruitless, because in the end, this is the nature of the business. They're peddling information about people, about things, and if it was about making this world a better place and bringing and promoting goodness and kindness, so okay, then that's wonderful. But it's peddling information so you have some gain from it. Torah says no. That's one point, right? And the second point is that if you can help somebody in their situation, we can't idly stand by. Whether it's a physical thing that they're endangered or a spiritual endangerment, we have a responsibility. So that's the prelude of everything, right? So then the verse continues. The next verse continues. It says, "You shall not hate your brother in your heart. You shall reprove your fellow, and you shall not bear a sin because of him." So what does it mean you shouldn't hate someone in your heart? But what if they do something hateful? What if they really do something terrible? So, as King David said, hate the sin, but not the sinner. Now, that's in a general sense, right? I mean, forget about Nazis and Hitler and Stalin. We're not that those things are off the table, right? Talking about your neighbor, talking about your family, talking, your community. So what does it mean that you shouldn't hate somebody in your heart? How do you digest that? What do you mean? So first of all, obviously, if someone has another opinion than me or has another political leaning, I can't hate them for that. I can't hate them for that. I might hate that point of view, but I can't hate them for that. But on a personal level, because this is really what it's speaking about, and again, we need to start with the personal level. On a personal level, what this is saying to us is very profound. If you have hate in your heart, you know what you need to do? You need to, one of two things, either work it out that you don't have it, you work it through on your own, or you have to rebuke that person because of the hurt that you have in your heart, in order to work it out with them that you don't have that hate anymore. And that's what the next part of the verse says. To rebuke. Why are you rebuking? You're rebuking so you shouldn't bear the sin and feel the negativity towards that person. So in other words, you got to work it out with the person. Again, on a personal level. So again, what does that mean on a collective level? I may hate someone's philosophy, and I terribly hate it. But that person, I shouldn't be hating in my heart because of that. Now, I got to tell you that these are, laws for the Jewish people. It's not one of the 7 Noahide laws. But from a Jewish perspective, this is Jewish law, right? This is Jewish law. Again, real evil people who might be, whatever. We're not talking about that. We're talking about your community people, your family, that kind of thing. So if you have a problem, if there is something that's on your heart, and we're human, but it means the onus is on me to deal with it, that I shouldn't have that feeling in my heart. That it's not finger pointing, you're evil, you're this, you're that. No, the finger is pointed at me. The verse says that there's a prohibition in the Torah that I can't have this hatred in my heart. But I do. Well, that means you got to work it through. Whether you work it through on your own because you have enough Tanya that you learned, enough Torah that you've learned, enough an awareness of what God needs from you, wants from you, that you can work it out on your own, or with your mentor, with your, with your, with a friend or whatever, right? Fine. And if not, then as the verse continues, rebuke the person based on the feeling you have in your heart, right? Got to be careful when you rebuke, though, because it can't come from those feelings. It has to come from, like, you've taken a deep breath and you're not rebuking from the hate. You're rebuking because of the actions, right? And not coming from that hateful position. And then you deal with that person. Why? So you shouldn't be able to put a sin on them, put something negative on them, because then you've worked it out and maybe you have a better understanding why they acted that way, rightfully, wrongfully, whatever. The point is, it's going to change the way you see them. Further, the verse says, you shall not take revenge and you shall not bear a grudge. So this will now, if you can't have the hate in your heart, then you won't take revenge. What's revenge? So Rashi gives the example. If I asked you yesterday, let's leave me out of this and leave you out of it. if Ruvain asked Shimon for a axe, can I borrow an axe from you? I need to chop down something in my backyard. He says, no, I'm not lending you. Sorry. And the next day, Shimon comes to Reuben and says, can I borrow an axe from you? My axe. Or can I borrow, not an axe, can I borrow a saw from you? And you say no. That's revenge. You're not allowed to take revenge. The verse continues and says, you're not allowed to bear a grudge. So what is bearing a grudge? Is that the same story? Shimon comes the next day and he asks Reuven, can I borrow the saw? And Reuven says, oh, of course, I'll lend you the saw. I'm not going to be like you that didn't lend me yesterday. That means you're bearing a grudge. You're not allowed to bear a grudge. So what's it mean? What does it mean? But that person did ill to me yesterday. That person did ill to me yesterday. What do you mean, don't bear a grudge? How do you? The point is, if life is about being served, well, you didn't serve me well, so I bear a grudge. But if life is about divine service, I'm here to serve. So then I'm here to serve. So in this situation, I got to see what's my divine service. How am I supposed to react to this? Well, Torah says, don't bear the grudge, let alone don't take revenge. How? Because you're not going to have the hate in your heart, because you got to work it through. You got to work it through. You won't have that hate in your heart. And then finally the verse says, the famous phrase, and you should love your fellows yourself. Ani Hashem, I'm Hashem, I'm God. Why is it end, I'm God? What does God have to be said there? I'm God, when we didn't know God's God? Yeah, when it comes to the heart, we fool people, right, by our actions. We act one way, maybe we feel a different way. In our heart, we fool ourselves and we think we're fooling God. So God says, I'm God. You're not fooling me. Don't think that, I don't know if you're bearing a grudge. Don't think I don't know if you're taking revenge. I know. Be aware that I know. And therefore, be real. Be honest to yourself, for your own sake, because I'm aware of that. Not because I'm going to be punishing him, you're going to go to hell. No, because you got to be real and you got to be honest and you've got to serve me appropriately. So the bottom line then of this is you should love your fellows yourself. So there's a lot, there's so much in here, and we're not going to get into all the finer details. But Hillel Hazakin had a convert, someone who wanted to convert to Judaism, approach him, and said, "Please teach me Torah while I'm standing on foot." So he said, "Don't do unto others that which you don't want to have done to you." And the rest is a commentary on the Torah. There's a lot here, and I'm not going to go into that because it's very profound, and it could be, it could be mistaken the deeper and the proper meaning of this. But let's just take it in the context over here. First of all, he's saying that based on here, love your fellows yourself. And he's translating it now in an action. What's that action? Like, how do you actionize? How do you bring that to an action to love another as yourself? Well, yourself. You don't want this to be done to you? Don't do it to someone else. That's as yourself, right? That's showing a love to another. Again, this is a very simple understanding. There's much more over here. But so what is that you don't want to have done to you? Are you afraid that someone would rebuke you? You don't want that to be done? Well, if you're an honest person, you know that sometimes you need to be rebuked. So you can't say that, right? You can't say that. Could you say that someone has something on their heart that they're feeling a hatred towards me or ill towards me, and that they shouldn't share that with me? Well, no, maybe if you care about that person and they're feeling that way, you do want that because you want to work it through. So it can't be that, right? So what is it that you don't want to have done to you? Maybe you don't want to loan so that, you don't want to loan so that way you're not going to loan other people money. Well, that can't be, there's a mitzvah to lend people money, right? I don't like to be helped. I like to be independent, so I'm not going to help others. Well, obviously that's not what it means. So what is it that we really don't like? There's only one thing. You know what that is? To be canceled. That I am persona non grata. That I am worthless. That I am someone who will not amount to something in your eyes. That I am all of those things, any of those things. That is something we hate. We don't want to have it done to us. That someone should think that I am worthless, that I'm not going to amount to something, that I'm a persona non grata, that I don't even reckon with you because there's nothing there to reckon. I'm going to destroy you, cancel you. I wouldn't want that done. Don't do it to anybody else. That's a very simple understanding of this message. Again, there's much more there, but a very simple in the context of what we're learning over here. And this is the message from this week's Torah portion, or a message. Very powerful idea that just brings out the ills and the evil of this culture. And again, I don't want to focus in on the ills and the evils of it. It's painful enough, and it's negative, it's dark. So we all are aware of it, but what we need to do is introduce into our lives a deeper appreciation of the truth, how to negate that on a personal level with others, and then on a collective level in society. And that when we are the Dugma Chaya, the living example of what we need to be, and shedding that light in the world, or just to one other person, we're going to change the world for good. We're going to bring Mashiach with all of this. And it's going to counter that cancerous culture that is destructive. Any questions, any comments, any thoughts?
Rabbi, I have a question. I completely agree with everything you are saying, but I have a question about the dealing with the groups of people more on societal level who actually spread hatred towards other people, how to deal with that.
So excellent question. I think the way to deal with it is, these kind of discussions that we're having today. The more we discuss it from, the Torah point of view, the more we discuss it from a genuine, motivation of trying to bring healing to the world and not dismantling, dismantling the world. I mean, there are things that need to be dismantled of the value system of the world. That's absolutely correct. And by the way, it can even be the, so to speak, the positive side to all of this, because everything there is some, since the sin of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, there's no bad that doesn't have some good, and there's no good that doesn't have some bad. So there is the good side of this is that there are the value system of Western culture in general, there's many things that need to be dismantled, and to be replaced with values that we're speaking about over here. But the Jewish way of doing it is not by burglarizing. It's not by protesting. It's by bringing light, the light of Torah, to the world. So that's what we need to do. Ryan.
Hi.
Or Chaim.
So I think obviously, we need to do all of what you have said in the Jewish community, but we also need to extend it. I mean, the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach always helped Goyim as much as he could, as well as Yidden.
Right, absolutely.
Encouraged us to do that as well. So I think, obviously, one of the reasons that the Eibishter chose, for those of you who don't speak Yiddish, that Hashem chose the Jewish people, is to lead, to be leaders in even the wider world, and to use the Torah perspectives that we've just been talking about to not only help Yidden, but help everyone. And so last year, as you may be aware, after all the protests that happened here in the U.S., a lot of people, and Yidden, some Yidden supported this movement. A lot of people wanted to remove all references to American slavery. And I know this is kind of a sort of a divertissement from what we're discussing, but it's kind of related. So people wanted to remove all references to American slavery, as if it never happened. And I think that I shared with my own with my shliach and the congregation where I attend shul, and I also shared it with some other with some local publications in my area, the Jewish perspective on this, the Torah perspective, that when you recognize that there is an evil that you need, or that there is a problem, rather than using cancel culture to deny the problem or to make that problem or the people who participated in the problem personi non grati, in that case, plural. What we as Yidden do is that we recognize that the problem happened, recognize that the people who were part of the problem were part of the problem, and we really try, not to hate them. And yeah, you're right. It's a different story with Hitler, Yamach Shemoy, and Stalin, Yamach Shemoy. But every year, and I mentioned this last year in this article that I wrote, that every year by Pesach, we talk about our own slavery. And we've never in 3,000 years said, let's erase it. Let's not talk about it. In fact, in the Torah, it says to talk about it. There's a mitzvah to talk about it, to hold a seder and talk about it, which is, and I'm trying to influence locally people who believe in this cancel culture, canceling out events like that slavery never happened in America by tearing down statues, tearing down Confederate flags, rewriting textbooks. I remind them that in our culture, in the Jewish culture, every single year we talk about slavery. In fact, every single Shabbos or Yontif, when we make Kiddush, we talk about the Yetzias Mitzrayim, which references the slavery. That's not cancel culture. That's recognizing. And then recognizing the redemption and eliminating the hate for the slavery, because we don't have it anymore.
You're
but
right.
We have to recognize that it happened before.
Yeah, very good. We need to recognize so we can grow and move forward. And that we actually, to add to Chaim, what you mentioned, our history as a Jewish people, if you learn Tanakh, Chumash, right, the Torah portions, there's things that were done that were wrong by, leaders even. Not Moshe Rabbeinu, not Moses, but other leaders. We had evil leaders and at different times, and it's part of our history. That's actually one of the ways people know that it's the truth. How do you know something is false? When it's all rosy and perfect, but when it's got its difficulties, and it's got a negativity, it has its evils that it brings out about your own people and your own leaders, then you know that this is coming from a truthful place. But historians throughout the world, and that's what we're trying to do. And Chaim, good point. Thank you. Sarah, did you want to share something? I wasn't clear.
Yes, I had a question on
Sure.
when you were speaking about the you shall not hate your brother in your heart. Okay, so I know you were talking about this is obviously my family, is Jewish by my grandmother. And the thing is, obviously, when, like, for instance, my aunt, she, well, I don't want to speak names, right? But she's chosen a different faith because of marriage or whatnot.
Right.
And, for whatever reasons, I hate to say it, but we're not, speaking to each other at the moment. It's disheartening to me.
Right.
How do I, I'm not trying to hold any hate against her, but it's like I want to speak to her. I want to communicate with her. I want to be able to, try to. You understand what I'm saying? Like I want to make things right. How am I supposed to do that? I mean, or am I just supposed to just leave it in God's hands and leave it alone? Because technically, she's still a Jew, even if she chose a different route.
So that's a really difficult question. That's a very detailed, specific one. But be it, whatever way you can be in touch, and the only way you can be in touch is by sending a birthday card and Rosh Hashanah greetings and Pesach greetings, and by sending that to her or sending her a text, or just whatever it is, if that's all that you can now. If you can speak to her, then speak to her in just warm, loving way. That she doesn't feel judged because she opted out from the Jewish faith. Like you said, she's still Jewish, even though she's opted out. And what else can you do? And but
Right.
most importantly, is that you are whole in your heart, and just trying to reach out in any way that you can is the only thing that you can do. Yeah, it's a painful thing, absolutely, and Hashem should arouse compassion from on high into her heart to allow her heart to be opened and to recognize that, listen, whatever lifestyle she's chosen, she's still Jewish. Yeah.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Adi.
Hi.
Hi.
So I mean, I talk about this topic with my friends a lot. We all do. And I kind of connected to the quote toxic positivity culture, which is just like trying to make everything better than what it is, just not being realistic with things, like not having a balanced view on both sides of whatever issue. Like when Chaim mentioned that last year I think it was, people were like taking down statues of slave owners and things like that. I understand both sides, but it's like, destroying the pyramids of Egypt, like it's big things in history that people need to be aware of. But I also struggle with it in the sense that, like when it comes to anti-Semitism and things like that, where things are very mainstream and very accepted, and there's a lot of lack of knowledge on the subject, and people just, go about spewing all of these things, acting, like thinking that it's really okay, and it's not. And like some people, when there are people that you can have a conversation with them about it, and you can learn, like both sides can learn, and people can drop their views. But there's people that don't, like the other day I was in a room on here on Clubhouse that I needed to get out of. Leah. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
This room, it was one of the anti-Semitic rooms of the people that had gotten kicked out of other Jewish rooms. And so Ariel was there. I don't know if anyone knows who she is, but she had gotten a chance to speak. And she started giving the history of the word anti-Semite and anti-Semitism and the origins and all of these things, because someone in the group was giving a specific view that like it's not just for the Jewish people, that it's for all the Semitic languages and all of these things, And when she finished speaking, it was as if she spoke to like a wall. And I was shocked, and like the responses that she was getting, I just had to leave the room because I could not believe. I just couldn't believe it.
Right.
So yeah, that's all I have to say. It's not really a question, but thank you.
So Adi, you're correct that sometimes we're going to be in a position, And in a clubhouse, by the way, it's an easy place to be in a toxic place, because there's so many different types of rooms going on, and you could go to any room you want to, right? And it could be very toxic, as opposed to, like, the people who are on Zoom with me right now. Lovely, beautiful people, wonderful community, because there's more of an intimacy of, or whatever, connection. But yeah, in Clubhouse, you got to be careful. And in life, you're right, sometimes we're going to be in a toxic position. And the only way in those places is sometimes the only way that we can shine our light by removing it at that moment and not sharing. Because if you're going to share something in a place where, the person's already got the answer to your statement or to your comment or to your share, and didn't listen because they're not interested, because they've canceled you before you spoke, there is no reason to speak. You got to leave the room, and power to you, Addie. Yes. Sorry, who was Tim? Tim, what? Yes.
Yes. Rabbi, would I be correct in saying that in the age of virus pandemic like that we're in, could you say that what we keep in our heart is contagious? And whoa, nice music,
Yeah,
Paul.
nice background music.
So it comes back to us as to our responsibility is what
Right.
we honestly keep in our heart,
Right.
and whether it be either negative or positive, that is what we will release into the world.
Thank you for sharing that, Tim. Actually, it ties in with the Tanya that we're learning, right? As King Solomon says, as water reflects face to a face, so likewise our heart will reflect to someone else's heart. What's on our heart will be reflected on our face. If we're angry, in our heart is going to show on the face, and that's what we're going to reflect it back. So to tie in, you're right. No one wants to be canceled. No one wants to have an angry face at them. Maybe someone's upset and you share that. That's one thing. But to have an angry face at you means you're going to get reciprocated, that angry face, and nobody really wants that. Very good. Thank you. Let me ask Noah. He's been patiently waiting to share on Clubhouse. Go ahead, Noah. And then I don't know who else is there on Zoom. Somebody, let me know. Go ahead, Noah.
Not even Rabbi. Thank you so much. But all the dogs are barking today. I'm grateful that you're talking Torah and holding space for good things. I think if I were to contribute to the discussion, I would say that to what Adi said, sometimes we'll do the Mark Twain quote, and we'll say, better not to argue with the ignorant, because they can drag you down to their level and then beat you with experience. And then to what we were saying about cancel culture in general, I think it's nice that one of our very few rare mitzvahs, like the commandments of just thought, is remembering that we were slaves in Egypt. That's an easy one. It's a mitzvah d'oraisa, isn't it?
Yep. Yes. Yeah.
So, we have a biblical positive commandment in just our thought, which is very rare for Judaism, to remember that we were slaves and that we were taken from slavery. Nice.
Thank you, Noah. You know what? Actually, thank you for sharing that, because actually, I didn't get the idea clear until now. You just mentioned, even though it was mentioned before, but the whole idea with American culture and that born in slavery, and so on. So I think everybody in America would agree that I would say 99.9%. I'm sure there's still a few whatever, but that American culture has evolved from a place of slavery that was accepted to a time now that it's totally unaccepted. So to erase that from the collective memory, which is the history, to erase that means you're not recognizing the evolvement. No one today is saying, wow, these people, this person was great for that action they did. No, they know, okay, in the time, whatever it was, we've evolved and we've progressed. And that's something that we have to recognize. Otherwise, actually, thank you. It just actually ties in so beautifully with the whole concept of Mashiach. To not have that in your history would be denying progress that you came from, like as we say by Seder night in Canada, by the Haggadah, and we say in the Haggadah, what do we say? That in the beginning we came from idolatry, right? Abraham was raised in idolatry, and that's our humble beginnings. And so we see how we start off in a negative place, and we've come to a good, a good healthy place.
That's why we have Mashiach Suda on the 8th day.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, because the first day we're stuck. We're still sort of stuck in that place. We're still going out of the Golus, and then by the 8th day we're heading Mashiach Suda.
Exactly. So it just ties in so beautifully of the whole concept of progress, that the world is progressing, and therefore having that notion is actually clarifies it, that not to get rid of the history. Now there might be little tidbits here and there. I don't want to gribble on the small details, but the notion of it, I think, is what's important. Marcy, please share.
I'm going to respectfully disagree. I'm going to make a distinction between a history that glorifies the past and a history that provides information. When we talk about like a statue or a flag without any context, all we're saying is, look at this. And to me, that is a glorification. It would be as if we were to erect a statue of Hitler in a synagogue with, look at what this guy did for us, because of him, we have the state of Israel. It's an anathema. It's a horror. And I feel like there's a distinction. When you say, like in the history books, like to cite one example of when Texas referred to slaves as servants, kind of implying that they were indentured servants. That's a misrepresentation. That's mamish wrong. That's not reality. But when you have a statue of a Confederate general with, this guy won all of these battles, that's a glorification. It's not a history in the sense anymore. It has walked away from the history and become a glorification of the history rather than just a straight retelling. And I'm done.
Thank you for sharing, Marcy. I would agree with you in the area of glorification. If you are glorifying slavery, so then and that notion, I would wholeheartedly agree with you that should not be glorified. Now, about a person, Abraham Lincoln had slaves, or does that mean you can't have a statue of Abraham Lincoln? Good question. From a Jewish perspective, he's not my person that I look up to in any case, in my life. So, I don't have such an issue with it. But from an American, perspective, I'm not certain that therefore there can't be a statue of Abraham Lincoln or some other Confederate general, perhaps. But that's why I don't want to get gribbling in the details of it, of that kind of detail. But I would agree with you. To glorify slavery, no. But if there's some kind of honor that's given to some past people of the past, and that they were have some ills about them, again, from me personally, I don't glorify them in any respect. I may respect them on some levels and appreciate them in certain ways, absolutely. But I'm taking it more from the American culture as opposed to from purely my personal take on it for me.
Can I just say one more thing, Rabbi? Sorry, I talk a lot, I know.
I just want to give some others, Chaim, I just need to give others a chance first, okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, there was, who was it?
Me, Saul.
Saul, go ahead, Saul.
Okay. Very interesting and very interesting discussion, and both sides of the have been very, very interesting. So I just want to discuss one thing on a personal level, and then go into, I guess, the community level. But on a personal level, you will always have the person that you can. There's all of the person that's done something that to you, you can. He doesn't always want to accept your rebuke. The
Right.
concept that it's like way out in left field. He's done something to you. In most cases, he doesn't want it, and you will bear a grudge towards him because of that reason, not necessarily because of the act himself or what he did. Just the fact that he or she does not want to accept that
to own what they
rebuke.
did.
Yeah, to own up to what they did. Yes.
Right. So actually, thank you for bringing that up, Saul, because the law is for that. You can only rebuke somebody who is going to accept the rebuke. If they're not going to, you're not. If they're not going to accept what you're going to say to them, then you're not supposed to tell them. You're not supposed to share it with them, and then you have to work it out yourself in order that you don't have a hate towards them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get that. It definitely is a challenge.
Okay. With regards to the cultural debate on the community and stuff, I have two sides of the issue, but I keep thinking of, and I was looking it up as my phone was going off. I was thinking of a famous quote that said, "If we forget our history, we are doomed to repeat it."
Right.
Okay. So, I mean, this is part of the issue. Now we probably can add, but if we're doomed to repeat it, part of the dooming to repeat it might be that we glorify the wrong people or the wrong situations.
Right.
And I mean, we have the same thing even in Canada at McGill University, where they want to take down the statue of James McGill because he owned slaves, or Sir John A. Macdonald for the same thing because he came up with a policy that was anti-Indian. We have the same thing here. I don't know if it's worthwhile. I would think that maybe perhaps we can leave up statues and say that, put something below it to say, hey, this guy wasn't perfect. But I don't know anyone, as you mentioned, Abraham Lincoln. I don't know anyone who is perfect. I mean, Thomas Jefferson.
No, we have Moses, we have, the Alpha Rebbe, we have the Baal Shem Tov, we have our, but anyways, I get the message. I need to end in just one moment. I'm just going to let Jason, because he's been waiting, and just it's Erev Shabbos, I need to end our discussion. We can continue it another time, but I really want to get back, though, to make this personal. I think if we're talking about statutes and we're talking about history and so on, we have no, unless you're knocking down the statutes or unless you're protecting those statutes, we have nothing to do with this. And you're probably not talking to people that you're changing anybody's mind about this. So what I would want, the take home is that it should be something personal in our interpersonal relationships and not, relegated to politics and to history and all those things that, then it becomes almost like a waste of our discussion because we don't grow from it personally. Yes, we all have an opinion. We all have, who's on the right, who's on the left, or who's left, right, right, left, whatever you want to call, who's right and who's wrong, whatever you want to call it. And but then that's not where we want to go with this. We want to go with this and take it on a personal level. We all have, like Saul, you shared personally, in an instance, and Sarah, she shared personally about something in her life, that in those ways we can take the teachings and grow and be a light. So we're just gonna, Jason, please share.
Hey guys, so I feel to a large degree the term cancel culture really just emerged emerged, I would say January or February. I mean, yeah, you do have, I am of the opinion that, someone should not be in the South and have a school named after a Confederate leader. 1865 was many years ago, and we know they lost, and the values they represent are not American values. So I think that you shouldn't have schools named after Confederate leaders who were pro-slavery primarily. I think on a separate topic, Thomas Jefferson was not a perfect person. He did own slaves. He was our third president. It's hard to evaluate everything, but on balance, he was a good leader. You could look overseas and say Churchill wasn't perfect in certain relationships with, some of the India or things, other parts of the British Empire in some sense. But overall, Churchill was great. I would not take down the Churchill statue. But I think the phrase cancel culture really just emerged when all these folks who were pro-Trump all of a sudden see that their guy got banned for what he did. And, for everything all the way up through the January 6th insurrection. And he doesn't deserve a platform. So I think that there's a lot of phrasing that people are all of a sudden upset about a Dr. Seuss book, supposedly, when in reality it's really their guy got banned for legitimate reasons from Twitter, from all these other platforms, for everything up to the insurrection, denying the results of an election in the United States for months and months, and he deserved to be banned. And people are not using the true words that they want to use. That's my view on it.
Thank you, Jason. So in summation, let me bring it back personal. And so we make sure we have the take home, and that we, again, very easy to talk about others, but let's talk about ourselves. Let's talk about ourselves and what it means that if we have hate in our heart, that we need to, for someone of a loved one, I don't mean someone that's distant from you, but a loved one, or someone that that you should have a good feeling towards, but they've done things, and we need to know that we need to work that out. If we can't work it out ourselves, we have to then bring it up to them, in order that I shouldn't see the negativity in them. I shouldn't bear the grudge. I shouldn't take revenge. And ultimately, don't do to others that which you wouldn't want to have done to you. Was the conclusion that if you don't want to be looked as that you are not created in the image of God, and that you are to be canceled because your views are not my views, and therefore I'm going to cancel you. We need to grow out of that. We need to follow how the Torah teaches us and how to be able to treat others. That doesn't mean we have to agree with them. It doesn't mean we have to embrace everything about them, but it does mean that we could even sit down at the same table and have a conversation. That's what it ultimately should be able to be. Or ultimately, but at least on some level. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Parsha Kedoshim in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you. We are every morning, 9:30 in the morning, learning Tanya. We are at 12:45 learning whether it's Talmud or Jewish ethics or whatever it might be. And invite you on Clubhouse to, you can follow if you would like. And let's keep in touch. And everybody have a wonderful, good Shabbos.
Thank you. Thank you all. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you.